Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala to be reminded about many matters of the unseen that take place right after the death of a person. And that narration is as Al-Bara ibn Azib radiyallahu anhu stated, خرجنا مع النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في جنازة رجل من الأنصار. We went out with the Prophet, may Allah raise his rank and grant him peace, on a funeral trail, or following the funeral of a man from the Ansar, the people of Medina, the companions who hosted and received the Muhajirin from Mecca. فَانْتَهَيْنَا إِلَى الْقَبْرِ. So we finished carrying the body all the way to the grave. وَلَمَّا يُلْحَدْ. And he was not yet buried, not yet put in the lahad, in the grave. So here is, we're pausing now, right at this instance during the burial of a person. He's been prayed upon, he's been taken to the graveyard, he's been laid next to the grave, and they're digging and preparing the grave for him to go in, and yet he has not entered at this point. At this time, what did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam do? فَجَلَسَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ sallallahu alaihi wasallam وَجَلَسْنَا حَوْلَهُ. He sat, may Allah raise his rank and grant him peace, and we all sat around him. I want you to pay attention how we're sitting in this gathering compared to how they were sitting. كَأَنَّ عَلَى رُؤُوسِنَا الطَّيْرَةِ. It was as if birds would land, or a bird would land on our heads. What's that mean? Two things. They were still and tranquil, listening attentively. Barakallahu fikum. And they were close. And they were very close to the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Like as if they were one body, like they were so close to each other, they were one body. We ask you, brothers, because this hadith is so significant, that you don't proceed, we don't read another letter from this hadith until we implement something from this hadith. What can we do? Barakallahu feekum. As these affairs are very serious, what happens? The whole world wishes they knew these matters. The whole world wishes they knew what would happen at the death of a person. Everyone searches. What's the meaning of life? What happens after death? Here we have information from a messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. What's going to happen after a person dies? وَفِي يَدِهِ عُودٌ يَنْكُتُ فِي الْأَرْضِ. He had a stick in his hand and he was tapping it or scraping it on the ground. As a person does, as the scholars say, who is in deep reflection. So it's a time of reflection, a time of thinking about death. Here's a body about to be buried at the graveyard, solemn atmosphere, everyone listening. The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam sat, not saying anything, and he began poking a stick into the ground, meaning in reflection. فَرَفَعَ رَأْسَهُ. Then he raised his head, which means his head was down with the stick poking in the ground in reflection. He raised his head then. Notice how they described every single move that he did. Every movement that he made, he raised his head. Not just he said something, but he raised his head, فَقَالَ. And then he said, استعيذ بالله من عذاب القبر. استعيذ بالله من عذاب القبر. استعيذ بالله من عذاب القبر. Seek protection with Allah from the punishment of the grave. And he said it 2 or 3 times. Seek protection with Allah from the punishment of the grave. He has already taught them a salat, which includes at the end of every salat what? Asking for refuge with Allah from min adhab al-qabr, from the punishment of the grave. This is already the life of a Muslim in every salat that he makes. Yet at this time he tells them, beg Allah for protection from adhab al-qabr. ثم قال, then he said, إن المؤمن أو إن العبد المؤمن, the believing servant, إذا كان في انقطاع من الدنيا, if he's on his, at the end, at the breaking away from this worldly life, death, وإقبال من الآخرة, and then he is facing now in front of him what? The hereafter. So the dunya is now behind him, the hereafter is in front of him. He has died. And that is every single one of us, that's our future. Without even saying insha'Allah. The only matter about our future that we don't need to say insha'Allah for. This is our future. That one day the dunya will be behind us and the hereafter is in front of us. And on that day, just like major parts of your life have gone by and you say it's like a day or just a short time, your whole life will be like that. That was it? That's life? It's over? May Allah Ta'ala save us and grant us stability on that day. نزل إليه ملائكة من السماء بيض الوجوه. Angels at that time descend to him. They are gleaming, bright-faced angels. كأن وجوههم الشمس. Like their faces are like the sun. May Allah Ta'ala allow us to see them.